Libya's warring parties had agreed in principle to a ceasefire. But when it came to signing the agreement in Russia, Warlord Khalifa Haftar backed out. At home, Libyans are still hopeful the fighting will end.
We hope that peace will come and the country settles so that citizens can rest.
The talks in Moscow have paved the way for negotiations to continue on Sunday in Berlin, where Turkey will again play middleman. It's deployed troops to support Libyan soldiers in defending Tripoli against Haftar's forces, should fighting resume again. Turkey says beefing up security in Libya is important for stability in northern Africa. But analysts say Turkey's military support is also vital for Ankara's interests beyond Libya's shores and what lies beneath. The eastern Mediterranean basin is estimated to hold $700 billion worth of natural gas, and Turkey wants a big piece of it. It's already exploring the region for oil and gas, and a stable Libya could boost access to those resources. The two countries have already signed an agreement to set up an economic zone that would stretch from Turkey's southern Mediterranean shore to Libya's northeastern coast.
We moved it to a new phase, sending the documents to the UN and registering it. Once this process is completed, at the Turkish Energy Ministry, we will begin working on the oil and gas exploration and production licensing in these new areas. I think we will start the process in the first months of 2020.
Turkey's pursuits in the region have angered its Mediterranean neighbors, Greece and Greek-administered Cyprus. Last month, those two governments signed a deal with Israel to build a pipeline across the Mediterranean. It will run through the Turkish and Libyan exclusive economic zones. Turkey has rejected the agreement, calling it a plan that is bound to fail. For now, Turkey wants to make sure it restores stability to one of its strongest allies in the region, and it won't shy away from flexing its military might. Laila Humairah, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's speak with Borzou Daragahi in Istanbul. He's an international correspondent at The Independent and has been covering the situation in Libya for many years now. He's also a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Scowcroft Centre for Strategy and Security. Welcome to Money Talks, Borzou. Now, we know Libya was on the cusp of a ceasefire deal with the UN-backed government signing on. Why do you think Khalifa Haftar essentially backed out?
We don't know. I think to some extent he sees the momentum with him in terms of the military dimension of the conflict. It could also be that he answers to many different patrons, including the United Arab Emirates and Egypt, and he needs to get those parties to sign off on any deal he makes. I think another interesting thing about Libya is in both factions, the Khalifa Haftar faction and the Government of National Accord, you know, there's collections of militias and armed groups and local and regional actors. And so, you know, these are sort of hobbled together rather loosely. And so, you know, it doesn't, if Haftar signs on to the deal and, you know, some of the allied forces that are with him don't, then it doesn't really mean a lot.
Let's look at the many players who are now involved in Libya. It's been 8 years since Muammar Gaddafi was ousted, as we know, and in that time, a whole host of countries have either gone to the region or supported it, different sides from afar. Why, we've got the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, France backing Haftar, Turkey, Qatar backing the UN-backed leadership in Libya. What do they all aim to achieve here?
I think it's about controlling this potentially very influential Mediterranean and North African country that is an important place. I think for the United Arab Emirates and Egypt, any government that has the taint of the Muslim Brotherhood, even slightly, even though the Government of National Accord in Tripoli, the Muslim Brotherhood-ish factions are just one part of it. Any group that has that taint is considered toxic. And I think, you know, for Qatar and Turkey, who are more sympathetic to that brand of populist Islam, this is the last chance to have a government in North Africa other than Tunisia that includes that faction.
We also know that Libya is rich in natural resources. It has Africa's largest oil reserves as well as mineral deposits and more than 1,000 kilometres along the Mediterranean. What role does all that play in this, do you think?
I mean, I think that does play a big role, but I don't think that the age of plunder is kind of gone to a large extent. I don't think that UAE and Turkey are fighting for control over the oil there. It's a lot more. I hate to put it this way, but I think it's more of a kind of high-minded chess game between two axes in the Middle East and North Africa that have bigger goals than simply plunder. But that is one dimension of it. And I think that more important for Turkey, at least, than what Libya has in terms of resources is the many contracts that Turkey was getting from Libya under Gaddafi, the construction business and so on, and oil services and so on. More interesting than just getting the natural resources. And also this gateway aspect of Libya to not just North Africa, but through the rest of Africa as well.
We've got the main actors expected to go to Germany to revisit this idea of a ceasefire later this month. What do you think will happen there?
Well, let's see if it happens. I think that as long as Khalifa Haftar has the UAE and Egypt egging him on, bankrolling him in this, they've gone deep into this, maybe deeper than they had hoped to. And I don't think yet that they realize that it's not a winning game. For Khalifa Haftar, he gets to keep his influence and power as long as the conflict goes on. If the conflict ends, he sort of becomes a spent force, and perhaps other people will take his place within his own faction. So I think that there's a vested interest to keep the conflict going, even if it's a stalemate.
Okay, Borzou Daragahi, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for your analysis.